KICKSTARTER, the plight of the SMEs, the small medium enterprises in that regard, and how recovery funds are helping them alleviate the situations they find themselves knee-deep in mire. A very good morning, Rashmi Pillai.
Good morning, Romeo, and good morning to your viewers.
Rashmi Pillai, I vacated this show almost a month ago, but before I left, yes, the economy had been largely resuscitated. Schools were reopened, the economy was reopened, but then only the bus had been stopped from reopening 2 weeks after the students had gone back to school. Now, I would like you to paint for me a picture of how the SMEs are recuperating as a result of the full reopening of our economy since January of 2022. How are they faring?
Thank you, Romeo, for the question. So the question is, if I understood you correctly, is to paint you a picture after the economic opening and how MSMEs are performing at the moment. So I would say that there is, as the monetary policy of the central bank has stated, there is certainly progress, there is hope, and MSMEs are seeing an increase in demand, an increase in consumption, but there is still a long way to go. 2 years of limited operational environment for MSMEs has had quite a devastating effect on their take-home incomes. Our own research has shown that the median monthly household before the lockdown in 2019 towards the end was 900,000 for an average household that was, the main source of income was either a micro or a small business. And it dropped by 50% by the end of 2021. So that is going to take some time in terms of recovery, and we are glad to support the government of Uganda's efforts by complementing our own fund, which is 70 billion shillings for micro and small enterprises, along with the MasterCard Foundation.
Rashmi Pillai, what are some of the other, grievances affecting the MSMEs as we speak right now?
So the other drivers that are affecting MSMEs, one of the biggest is the drop in aggregate demand. There isn't enough. So people have been, during the past 2 years, there were layoffs, people's take-home income decreased. Therefore, the kind of buying patterns or consumption patterns have dropped, and therefore sales revenues have dropped, and take-home income of businesses has gone down. Second is supply chain related issues. There's a big issue around inventory, how goods are coming in and out because of backlog due to COVID shutdown and multiple worldwide supply chains. That has also created the cost of doing business has gone high. Thirdly, because transportation was also under a lockdown, that also created gaps and now transportation providers are also, along with supply chain, trying to increase the cost of transport of goods and services. All of this adds to the cost of doing business. All of this has an impact on the profitability of businesses.
We would like to also know, Rashmi Pillai, what is the MSME Recovery Fund, the Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Recovery Fund, and what kind of help have these people received during the last couple of months as far as recovery funds are concerned?
Sure. Just to clarify, the fund that FSD Uganda has established with the support of the MasterCard Foundation's Young Africa Works program is a 70 billion shilling fund. We just recently launched it. The target audience is only micro and small businesses. We are not trying to duplicate what the government of Uganda is already doing with their Small Business Recovery Fund. So their fund targets typically slightly more mature, slightly bigger ticket sizes of loans, whereas the businesses that we're targeting need loans as low as 100,000 shillings to a maximum of 10 million shillings. So these are really small enterprises. And the way they can access these extremely subsidized loans is through microfinance institutions. So we are working with deposit-taking microfinance institutions or non-deposit-taking microfinance institutions and SACCOs.
Of course, when it comes to accessing finances, they've been grappling with so many issues, like the criteria to be followed for one to access this money. What is being done to alleviate such challenges?
That's a great question. So we are working. Actually, that's one of the reasons that we are working with microfinance institutions. So microfinance institutions, SACCOs. So let's take SACCOs. SACCOs are membership-driven organizations. So they either are driven by the economic. They are formed by the economic activity, whether that's agriculture or agro-processing. So they know their members, and they will be able to disburse loans because it's a membership-driven organization. They don't require you to be formally. They already know what business you're in. Then let's take non-deposit taking microfinance institutions. They're in the business of lending to small businesses and micro businesses for a long time. They know how to act. They know what other kinds of mitigation mechanisms they can have in place in order to make sure that businesses return the capital that has been extended to them. For example, the way microfinance works is that typically they ask for a cash collateral, like you put a small deposit down and you get the total extent of the loan that you need. So it's not necessarily a hard collateral or a formal license registration that's always required.
And Rashmi Pillai, we've seen several funds, yes, being recovery funds being initiated in the last 2 years. What makes the MSE recovery funds so different?
Yeah, again, another great question, Romeo. So for us, what we realized is based on FSD Uganda is an evidence-based organization. We work with the central bank, the Ministry of Finance to produce data that is meaningful and then create initiatives that can, that's based on information that we have gathered from the market. So what we realized is that a lot of the funds that are being established will and should, rightfully so, will go to a lot of the medium-sized or maybe even some of the larger small businesses. But our data has showed that there's about a 1.8 million owner-operator, one person or two people enterprises that will not recover until 2023 or after if there's not something specific done for them. And our micro and small enterprise fund, the way it is being designed is for these extremely small businesses. It is to ensure that 50,000 micro and small enterprise MSMEs at the end of the 5-year facility will be able to recover. It is to ensure that 100,000 jobs that are at risk will recover and will add 150,000 new jobs through wages or salaries. So our focus is very specific.
Rashmi Pillai, when this economy was reopened in January, we had anticipated that most of the businesses within this country would come back and start operating. But that is largely not what we've seen on the ground. Many of the businesses have not opened up for operations. What are some of the factors behind that, and what are you doing to alleviate those challenges?
So I think that it is going to take time. It is well understood that once the economy was opened in January, we're just in the third month, going to be in the third month of the year. It is going to take time because the devastating effects of 2 years of not having enough cash flows, not having enough revenues, and struggling with supply chain, cost of businesses going high, it is going to take a long time to recover. Many businesses that took loans before or during COVID will have to restructure and are already restructuring their loans. After that, there needs to be an increase in consumer demand. We've also seen that some of the businesses shut down and are now starting new businesses. They have pivoted because enough revenue that is coming in. It will take that recovery journey, and that trajectory is going to take time. That being said, I do think we are on the right path. The government's efforts, as well as the efforts of the private sector, are going to stimulate the economy. I do think, however, coupled with that, there needs to be more directed effort in terms of helping businesses, financial literacy, helping them with understanding how to run their businesses better. So partnerships with organizations that can help entrepreneurs or small business owners recover sooner. And that can be done even by financial institutions that are extending loans to them. They can also help them manage their businesses better, will add significantly in their recovery.
Besides the issue of finances, we also do know that many of these businesses did not have the skill mindset to actually operate their businesses in that regard, meaning they did not have the skills, but they did have the finances. When the economy did reopen, many of whom could not actually come back into the fold because of the same. Others could have access to credit, but not access to the skills that they need to actually ensure that their businesses are a success. As financial sector depending Uganda, are you also actually ensuring that you traverse this sphere, acquainting them with the skills and the knowledge that they need, besides just injecting cash into their projects? Rashmi.
Great. That's a very important question, Romeo. So financial sector deepening Uganda's mandate is on greater access to finance, whether that's payment, savings, credit, insurance, or long-term pensions for the most marginalized and vulnerable in the community. Are skill building important? Absolutely. It needs to be coupled with access to finance. Finance in of itself is not a solution to helping businesses or even people get out of poverty. But is that our mandate? I would say not exactly. We typically do that by partnering with other organizations in the country that have the competencies and come with experience of skill building. So we do that through partnerships because our expertise and area is on finance. So yes, absolutely necessary, and we will do it through partnerships.
Let's talk about paying back, Rashmi Pillai, because you are targeting a big number of projects. So businesses, 50,000 people of businesses are being targeted by your venture. Plans to pay back, break them down for us.
Sorry, Romy, you'll have to repeat that question. I'm not sure I got you.
The number of projected businesses are 50,000 that you're going to be helping with this money, the 70 billion Uganda shillings. Are there any plans to pay back? Rashmi.
Sorry. So yes, I did get the question on 50,000 businesses being our target, but I'm not able to get the later part of the question. Maybe it's technology. Sorry, Romeo.
Rashmi Pillai, you are targeting 50,000 businesses with this project. Those are the beneficiaries. Are there any plans to pay back? What are the steps to be followed?
Oh, so the question is, how are they expected to pay back, right? So the way the fund is structured is that we will give loans to microfinance institutions and to deposits. So we are giving it to participating financial institutions. And these financial and we're choosing financial institutions that have experience working with micro and small enterprises. So that's actually a big selection criteria. And they will then on-lend it to the businesses that they work with, because they're in the business of giving money out. So we're working through them. And the risk of returning the entire capital back to the fund is on the financial institution. And we're giving the money at very subsidized rates to these financial institutions to actively nudge them to lower interest rates to help these businesses get cheaper access to capital, therefore helping them pay back.
We have SMEs that are adamant to get back into the fold simply because they are not sure the economy might largely still remain open. Many people think, well, I might come out 2 weeks later and the government says there's another lockdown. What kind of advice do you have to such skeptical business people?
To be frank, Romeo, I doubt if we'd survive another lockdown. It is going to be very devastating for this economy if we go into another lockdown. And that's the truth of the matter. I do think that companies that were able to be agile and were able to adopt digital means of reaching their customers. So you need the ability to reach your customers. So they should be able to buy products and goods online. Then you need to be integrated to payment services like mobile money, banks, etc. So your customers can pay for you and then be able to deliver that goods. So that entire operating model needs to be figured out by businesses. Some of them have been able to, a lot of them still struggled, especially if they're informal businesses. And what happened during the pandemic is a lot of the fin started these small businesses, micro businesses on their platforms because they realized that that was a real need. We will see more of that happening. That clearly has been a big economic shift in multiple countries, including Uganda, and that is only going to grow. But that, again, will take time. So if we go into another lockdown, it is going to take a lot more to help these businesses recover.
Rashmi Pillai, in the wake of the continued raging COVID-19 pandemic, you also do have wars skyrocketing on various peninsulas or within the world. You understand what I'm saying? Ukraine, Russia, you do have governments within Africa that are seeing mutinies and so forth. Political climate is actually increasingly becoming so hot within various jurisdictions, coupled with COVID-19. As a business person, what should I have in mind as I embark on resuscitating my business operations during this COVID-19 pandemic moving forward? What should I have in my mind, at the back of my mind? Rashmi.
Great. So, Romeo, I think you've and NTV has already covered this. So the crisis is going to, we should be very cognizant of the cost of fuel prices. And we are seeing that happening world over because there are multiple reasons for that. But the crisis, the Ukraine crisis that is something you should be careful about. And when fuel prices increases, it then just increases the cost of transportation, of goods, supply. That has a direct impact on the cost of operations and the cost of doing business in any country. So then that has a direct impact on the profitability of enterprises. And that means enterprises need to be very careful of how they're managing their expenditures, their outflows, and their cash flow management. So, and how they're also negotiating with their suppliers and customers. So if I were in a business, those are factors I would keep in mind.
Pillai, are you afraid that moving forward we could be seeing the dissolution of SMEs within this country? They make up 90% of the labor force within this country, but with the meager funding that we are seeing coming in from the government, stimulus packages dwindling as they are from the government to the SMEs, are you afraid that moving forward we might see the decimation, the end of the private sector, the SMEs as they are, if we do not inject more money, if COVID-19 persists, if the political climate continues to heat up? Are you worried that all these events coupled together might kill the SMEs?
So, Romeo, just to clarify the question, was the question that is there a real threat to to SMEs actually dying out, which employ the largest number of people? Is that the question?
Indeed, Rashmi, in the wake of COVID-19, in the wake of meager funding and recovery funds from the government and so forth, what do you make of that? Climate change.
So, first and foremost, what the Uganda Bureau of Statistics panel surveys have shown is there has been a significant increase in poverty in the past 2 years, in the past couple of years, actually. And that has a big impact on financial inclusion. If people don't have money in their pockets, they're not going to save. It's very hard for them to access credit. And that does mean that will then result in greater and greater unemployment. And if you're more unemployed, you don't have enough money for even education. So that has a generational impact. So therefore, it is very important that these stimulus packages, whether that's, and it's not just stimulus, actually these funds, the Small Business Recovery Fund, the parish development model that the government of Uganda has launched, and our own fund, like the private sector initiatives like ours, target the right enterprises. So targeting is actually a very big issue, and it's not an easy challenge. So we will be working collectively with the government and other private sector actors to make sure we are targeting the right businesses, we're helping and giving them the support that they need. But the truth of the matter is there will be some businesses that will die and they will resuscitate. What needs to then happen is that when they come back with different ideas, when they come back with new ways of doing business, are there support mechanisms for them? Are there skill building opportunities for them? And that's where support from the entire private sector and development community comes together.
Pillai, you did mention the parish development model, the 490 billion shilling PDM. Do you think it is the magic bullet that we need to actually arrest this situation as far as the SMEs are concerned? At the parish level, you talked about targeting the vulnerable people at the grassroots. Do you think the PDM is the magic bullet that will go a long way in alleviating the challenges of the SME, 75% of whom are in agriculture?
Absolutely. I do think the parish development model was really well thought through, well designed. And it is, year on year, the way the government is looking at it, it is looking at increased.
Can continue, Rashmi. She is the ED of...
Hi. Hello?
Yes, we can still hear you, Rashmi Pillai. Continue.
Okay. And the two big pillars of the PDM, one is education, and the second is financial inclusion, which, as if I have to quote the PSST, are opportunity equalizers. They are meaning that if you have the opportunity, irrespective of which background you come from, rich or poor, if you have the right and proper education and access to financial services and access to finance, you will have an opportunity pathway to better your life, better your livelihood, and go up the economic ladder. So the parish development model is built on those two pillars. There are more pillars. But so I do think that the way it has been designed will go a long way in helping the recovery of MSMEs and help Uganda achieve its national development goals.
Of course, Rashmi Pillai, let's talk about the help that is coming from the government. In the financial year 2020-2021, some 555 billion Uganda shillings was operationalized in UDB for the SMEs. Now, 2021-2022, we did see some 53 billion Uganda shillings being accorded to the SMEs. Are you satisfied with the financial help that is coming from the central government? Rashmi? What more needs to be done?
Sorry, Romeo, I'm not sure I was able to... apologies, technology issues. Indeed. I'm not sure I was able to get that question. Is the question on UDB? Yes,
Rashmi Pillai, in the financial year 2020-2021, 555 billion was put into UDB for the SMEs. 2021-2022, 53 billion was put into UDB for the SMEs. Do you think that help actually went a long way in helping them alleviate their challenges? And what more should be done if it was little?
Great. Thank you, Romeo, for the question. Yes, absolutely. UDB has been taking, has been at the forefront in supporting medium-sized businesses. So the UDB, I would say, is targeting more mature businesses rather than micro and small businesses. That is not necessarily the mandate of UDB. And medium-sized businesses employ a lot of individuals. So it's very clear where their target audience is, why that is the target audience, and how they're looking at employment multiplier sectors like agriculture, manufacturing. They employ the largest number of people, and therefore the focus of UDB is definitely on employment sectors that have the largest multipliers, thereby increasing economic transformation of the country. I do think UDB should, in terms of what they could do next, I think they're very focused on the sectors that they're moving forward, which is great. They may also probably want to investigate models of how they can work through other intermediaries to channel their funds to smaller businesses as well. So that's one model I'm sure that they are investigating, on how to channel their funds to smaller businesses or through SACCOs and other cooperatives that could use concessionary capital from UDB.
Well, Rashmi Pillai, the money in UDB has not helped the SMEs because it was not going to the small businesses, but rather medium and big businesses, in a nutshell. That's what you mean?
Yeah.
Rashmi,
yeah, they're going, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they are. That's the target. That's the target for UDB, and rightfully so, because they're looking at more companies that generate employment, companies in sectors that are responsible for economic transformation within the national development plans. They are now actively thinking about small businesses, micro businesses, what is a good model for them to actually support these businesses. But traditionally, their focus has been medium businesses, yes.
During the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw dwindling donor funds streaming into our economy. As Uganda, we would like to, paint a picture for us of how that dwindling money actually affected the SMEs within our country. The cut shortages from the donors.
Sure. So I would actually be remiss if I did not talk about it in terms of gender. So in terms of SMEs and their dwindling expenditures, what we've seen is incomes for small businesses and micro businesses dropped by 50%. If they were a male-driven business, it dropped by 50%, but if it was a female-driven business, it dropped by 67%. Most women had to also do their dual responsibility during COVID of childcare, home care, while also supporting a very struggling business with a shutdown or with limited transportation, curfews, etc. So these businesses will need specific support. And that's why when it comes to our micro, small, and enterprise, that 40% of the focus should be on women-led or women-operated businesses. And that's one of our key focus area. The other demographic that was really badly hit is young people running their businesses. Already, it's an early stage business. If you're a young person, you have challenges around access to finance, and then you suddenly have shutdowns and lockdowns. You're struggling with all of that because you don't have enough savings, buffers, or even social capital to help restart your business. So that's another demographic that our fund will focus on and has a big target to focus on.
That is Rashmi Pillai, the ED of a financial sector deepening Uganda. Now, from the investigations you've been mounting and from your perspective as financial sector deepening Uganda, what could be done to alleviate most of the challenges we've highlighted during the last 20 to 30 minutes or so that the SMEs can actually thrive within this country? Rashmi Pillai, recommendations.
Great. So in conclusion, Romeo, I think very targeted access to finance for different segments, so micro, small, and medium businesses will go a long way. Second, restructuring some of the existing loans, so especially of companies that are reasonably doing well and we know are on the path to recovery. Number three, partnering with capacity building organizations and skill building organizations, particularly for micro and small businesses. Lastly, making it easy for them, for all types of businesses, to access these various funds that have been set up by the government and private sector will go a long way in their recovery.
That is Rashmi Pillai. Thank you so much for having made the time to speak to us right here on Morning at 10 TV.
Thank you. Thank you, Romeo. Thank you.
Indeed. She is the Executive Director for Financial Sector Deepening Uganda. Still in the sphere of business, we also do know that the Russian ruble has actually tumbled over 30% as a result of their invasion within Ukraine. That is the latest information coming in right here on Morning at 10 TV, and that is largely hinged on the sanctions that have befallen the Russian territory as a result of the Ukrainian invasion that has also seen 4,300 of the Russian troops killed since that is February 24th of last week. We also do know that 198 people have died within Ukraine, 3 of whom were civilians. President Volodymyr Zelensky is telling us that the Russians are not actually leaving any stone unturned. They're bombing kindergartens, they're bombing residential buildings, they're bombing anything that is in sight and anything that is moving in that regard. But what we do know from the international scene is that Russia is not actually going to be is not going to be allowed to actually orchestrate all these heinous orchestrations on the whole global stage. France is sending help, Germany is sending help, Denmark is sending help, Sweden is sending help. We also do know that the United Kingdom is also going to be sending help. NATO is readying their, rapid response team to actually enter Ukraine and alleviate the situation. For now, there is no truce, but rather a ground invasion that is halted at the hands of the Russians over ideology.